Hola, tudo bem, como estás? Hello, konnichiwa, aloha. What it do? Welcome to the J-Boy Sports Podcast. Please like, share, subscribe, comment. Even if you don't love everything that I do, you could still help a brother out. So there's nothing wrong with helping a brother out. And I love to debate. I love to have conversations. So feel free to flood the comments. We can talk, hopefully peacefully, because that's always the best way to do it. But I'm finally going to chime in on the Deion and Shedeur Sanders situation here. Recently, they were sitting in their draft situation, wherever they were, and Shedeur did not get drafted till the 5th round. And a lot of people have had a lot of different things to say about this. And I've been watching, I've been thinking, doing all that good stuff. And I finally decided that it's time for me to step up here and say what I believe about the subject. And I'm just going to start off by saying that I am always true to myself. I'm going to be honest about what I see. And one of the things that I think a lot of people like to bring into conversations is color. It's always a big deal. Black, white, mainly black and white, but sometimes other colors are also included in that. But it's mainly always black and white, especially here in the United States of America. Those are the main two colors that people are speaking about. And in this situation, it's no different. There's been color thrown around, and that's been a topic of discussion. But ultimately, my thoughts all stem from the same setups and situations. And I've had debates with people about this. I've had discussions, and some people don't see it my way. Some people do. But in this video, we're going to use some audio evidence of some of the things other people are saying specifically. And I'm going to be honest, it's more so people that have the same idea as what I have. You already hear a lot of the other opinion, and you'll understand what I'm talking about as we go through this video. But Shedeur Sanders, in my opinion, is a good football player. I don't have any specific issues with Shedeur Sanders. I think that he is a good football player. I think he's talented. And I think that he can be as good as his work ethic. That's ultimately what I believe. That's ultimately what I believe. And we'll see what happens for him. But I also think that who he is and who Deion Sanders is causes problems, right? Causes problems. What do I mean by that? Well, let's start off by looking at Deion. I know a lot of people like Deion Sanders. I don't dislike Deion Sanders, but he's not my favorite person either. Why is that? Well, Deion does a lot of talking. He's prime time. Very flashy. Not as flashy as he used to be. I will give him that. He's not as flashy as he used to be. But his words are still as flashy as could ever be. Literally as flashy as could ever be. He was at Jackson State, I believe, and he and Shedeur and Hunter and Shiloh brought some great press to that. And it's a black-owned college, right? Or actually, I don't know if it's black-owned. I know it's a historically black college, though. And they brought them a lot of fans, a lot of money. Excuse me. And Deion brought them some notoriety, some sponsors, got them on TV, different things like that. He was doing big things. And when he was doing that, everything was black this, black that. He was really generating a lot of press for people. But like tends to happen when you have, black people, in black situations, he ended up taking the money and going over to Colorado. And one of the things that he said that personally I was bothered by in that experience was, oh, well, this is what God wanted me to do. Now, ultimately, maybe God did want you to do that. Maybe you prayed on it. But the way he was, before that, he was speaking so highly of wanting to support black people and black situations and be there for black people by bringing people into, more black spaces. And I was cool with that. I was like, okay, he's trying to do something for his people. Fine, like it. He's going outside of himself. But the moment that he found a better opportunity in Colorado, of all places, which is a largely white institution, which is fine. I don't have a problem with that per se. The only issue I did have with that is all of the praise he was getting for helping black people at that time. And then the moment he had an opportunity to focus on himself, to help raise himself, he took the money and went to Colorado for the bigger money and the bigger opportunity. Probably better facilities, all that stuff. Secularly, it makes sense. Financially, it makes sense. But when we're talking about supporting people, and that's your big stick, that's how you got on. You got on because it was black this, black that, and then you left it as soon as you had a better opportunity. To me, what does that say about Deion Sanders? To me, that just sounds like a guy that's going to talk his way into a better situation no matter what. And he's going to use whatever he can use to get ahead. And straight up, and being honest with you, I see that a lot from black people. White people do it too, to some extent. There's nobody that's, I'm not going to say nobody, but there's a lot of people grifting off of their race, unfortunately. That is true. But in this case, we're talking about Deion Sanders, so I see that in him. And it bothered me. On the field, I didn't watch a lot of Deion Sanders. He's a little bit before my time. But, you see the highlights. Prime time. Everybody knows how great he was. One of the most elite athletes of all time. But with that came a serious ego and bravado. And there's part of me that sometimes you listen to Deion Sanders, you're like, wow, Deion's great. Deion's cool. All that stuff, fine. But when you're a grown man like myself now and you really dissect it, you're just like, bro, this guy's mad flashy, always talking about himself in third person and stuff like that. It's always him. When he went to Colorado, he kicked out most of the team. It was like, oh, I'm bringing Louis with me and all this stuff. And, at a certain point, me personally, I asked myself, if this guy could this guy be my friend? Could I be cool with him? Throw away all the money. Forget the money. If he was just a normal dude at LA Fitness or something like that, would he be my favorite person? And for me, the answer is no. So I say that to say, once again, I don't hate Deion Sanders. He's entertaining. But ultimately, all the bragging, all the God asked me to do this, he talks about God all the time. But he mentions God, and he's not humble. When you're talking about, when you're talking about God, when you're talking about Jah, we talk about Jesus Christ. There's talk about the Bible. The Bible doesn't tell you to walk around flashing jewelry and being mad cocky and overconfident all the time and not humble. I don't see any humility when I see Deion Sanders. And I know this video is mainly about drafting Shedeur, but I wanted to explain to you how I see Deion Sanders to start with. There are some of you that will automatically hate me because of what I'm saying about Deion. But again, similar to other athletes, I have no God in man. Deion is not my God. He's not my dad. I'm just telling you what I see and what I think about him. I don't think he's necessarily a bad person. But the lack of humility, and especially when you're constantly talking about God, it bothers me, if I'm being honest. It's bothered me. Unfortunately, that translates to his son. Shedeur Sanders is a product of his father. He may be a worse product than his father. Why is that? You see the stories. You see the stories. When you watch Shedeur Sanders and he talks, he sounds like his dad, but worse. You know why he sounds worse than his dad? Because his dad is one of the greatest athletes of all time. I wasn't born or alive when Deion first came onto the scene. I know he was always cocky, but I'd have to ask an OG about that, how that looked early on. But in my lifetime that I've been watching football Deion Sanders has been cocky, but he's Deion freaking Sanders. So you can understand it. You get it, right? You get that he's prime time. You get all the accomplishments, right? You get it all. His son is not that. He doesn't have all the accomplishments. He's not done all those things. And we're in a social media era where you can see everything he says and see everything that he does. And when you see a kid who is however old, I don't know how old he is, but he's not old, talking all this talk, walking all this walk, huge chains, driving a Maybach at like 16 years old. You watch a video of Deion talking to Shedeur like, if you do this, I'll buy you whatever car you want. Now, to a person that's sitting up here trying to do the best they can in life to achieve things, that doesn't have all these, extra amenities and special treatments and things like that, you sit up there and you kind of see that. And for me, it's a little bit of a turnoff, right? And let's say, for example, the only real other person I could compare this to, other family, is LeBron's family. Because LeBron is a freak athlete, one of the greatest athletes we've ever seen. And he has a son that he's trying to get into the league, that is in the league also. Just like Shedeur is now in the NFL. But you don't see LeBron and Bronny doing stuff like this. That's why I got to give them that. They're not sitting up here flashing their material in front of you all the time. But when I watch Deion and Shedeur, it just seems like they're flashing their material in front of me. And some of you might say, oh, well, Jay Boyks, are you jealous? No, not necessarily jealous. I don't envy another man to the point where I'd rather give up my life and live their life. I don't overly concern myself with, oh, I wish I had somebody else's money. I wish I had more money. I think most people wish they had more money so they could do more things that they want to do. But I don't necessarily need somebody else's life or their money, right? I don't need that. But it's off-putting when you're watching Deion and Shedeur and their family just do all this outrageously expensive stuff. Now, if you look at this from a color lens, some people say, oh, well, black people, because we struggle to have certain things, some of us, oh, well, when we get it, we got to flash it. Well, you don't have to do that. You realize that, right? None of us have to do that. If it's a choice, it's a choice. You can be more conservative, right? Me personally, I choose to be more conservative. Now, I don't have the money to do the things that they do currently, but I'd like to believe that if I did, I would still be a little bit more conservative. Why? Because why do you need to flash everything to everybody? And before we say, some people might jump on and say, oh, well, that's, you sound like people that don't look like you, that, don't want you to be successful or whatever the case may be. Not the case. Not the case. Right? Because at the end of the day, people that are overly flashy, flashing their jewels, flashing everything they have, you're a target. And this is not a color thing. Right? This is not a color thing. Why? Because if you go to your nearest urban area, nearest hood, and flash all that jewelry and just be walking down the street, acting like you ain't got no cares in the world, somebody that's desperate, few people that are desperate, depending on what neighborhood you in, dang near half the block might come after you. And at that point, do you think they care about your color? Or the fact that you think you're better than them and you're flashing stuff around? So, either way, it's off-putting. If you're flashing jewelry in the hood, you see what happened to Nipsey Hussle. I'm not saying he was flashing jewelry in the hood, but 50 Cent even said, like, yo, that's why I don't go back. That's why I don't live there no more. Because this is not a color thing. If you flash it, people are going to want what you have. And I think about that all the time when I think about Shedeur and Deion. And it's not right, but I think they got robbed at Jackson State. Mainly a black college, right? So this isn't a color thing like, oh, only white people don't want to see that. Only white people are going to, come after you and your stuff. The black people robbed you at Jackson State. They saw what you had, and apparently they wanted it. Which is why, maybe, being more conservative isn't a bad thing. But why does that matter? Why does the cockiness, the arrogance, the bravado matter? People talk about, oh, they just don't like confident black people. Again, not true. Not true. You could be confident without being arrogant. And that's really the whole point, is that you don't have to walk around with the chains and make everything about you. Funny enough, I was actually speaking with some women that I know, some of my wife's friends, and I asked them, I said, what do you know about Deion Sanders? And the first thing that she said was, oh, he's flashy. And I mean, that's the point. That's what I'm talking about. It's just always a flash. Excuse me. It's always a big show. Everything is me all the time, And then, like I said, he brings God into it, says, God wanted me to do this. God wanted, and it's like, I don't want to destroy people's relationship with God. That's not my point. But, he's also not to be mocked. If you're going to constantly bring up God, which is fine, in my opinion, this is my opinion, then you should outwardly work on and try to show the qualities that he wants us to have. If, that's what I would think. And the only way we know anything about God is the Bible. And even if you don't read it daily or it's not a big part of your life, everybody knows that Christians are not supposed to be arrogant and overly cocky. It doesn't say you can't be confident, but it does question or at least admonish you or try to balance you out with not being too arrogant and too cocky. And this isn't a color thing. Once again, if you're a white person, if you're a white man and you're super cocky, you don't listen, you everything is always about you, I'm personally going to have a problem with that. Everybody else can praise the ground that you walk on, but I won't be doing that type of, I won't be taking part in those type of activities. And it doesn't change for me when it comes to black men either. But also there's another element here with Shedeur, which is you raise your son, pause no diddy, Shedeur is a nice looking guy. Obviously has money because Deion had money, but he's making his own money now. He made his way to the NFL, right? This isn't a situation where Deion, manipulated the draft to make sure that Shedeur was drafted. He was drafted on his own merit. I respect all of that. But the cockiness is costing him. You've already built up enemies, Deion, that now your son is going to have to bear, and your son is building up enemies because it's just too much. At a certain point, you need to be humble, man. You could still be confident without being so arrogant. And we're already 18 minutes in here, and I haven't even gotten anywhere yet. But I wanted to I've never explained on this channel. I really haven't had a chance to talk about football at all because basketball has been so booming. But I haven't had a chance to explain my thoughts on Deion Sanders. So I'm taking this time to explain my thoughts on Deion plus how that affects Shedeur. But again, my thoughts on Deion, I don't dislike Deion. Deion entertains me. I like listening to the interviews that he has. He's a fun listen. But if I'm talking about realistic person, me not being a straight up fanboy, just looking at Deion and the whole picture, I see how his arrogance can be annoying to even someone like me. So just to recap real quick where we're at. Deion Sanders is not a bad person. I don't think he's a bad person. He is giving of himself to coach these kids. Even though they get paid a lot of money, I still think it takes a certain type of person to be a coach because there's a lot of other great players that don't want to be coaches. And Deion has ran into this head on, and I respect Deion for that. But like I said, he was at Jackson State hyping up. All the black people were excited, and then all of a sudden he runs over to Colorado State, leaves the black people behind, predominantly white school, white area, because it's a better opportunity and for the money. And I get that. I don't have a problem with it being for the better opportunity or the money, but you just told black people previously that you were there for them and you were there to help them. And you did help them in a short amount of time, but when you left, nobody talks about Jackson State anymore. I don't know who's coaching Jackson State. I don't know any of the players on Jackson State. I don't know any of the players on any historically black college, to be honest with you. And I'm going to be honest, I don't follow college sports all the time, like in a super big way either. I don't, if I'm being honest. But I still knew who everybody, Deion Sanders and Travis Hunter and Shedeur and Shiloh are. And a few other players on their team at Colorado. I don't know anybody on Jackson State. So there is to me, there's a selfishness to Deion Sanders, right? And now it trickled down to his son. Before the draft, Deion was saying that he was going to control where, he has a plan for his son. He knows where he wants him to go. And he's talking about how good he is. And then also recently he retired his son's jersey. And I believe Cordell Stewart went to Colorado. And I don't think Cordell Stewart's jersey is retired. Let's find out. Is Cordell Stewart's jersey retired at Colorado? No. Cordell Stewart's jersey number 10 has not been retired at the University of Colorado. And he was highly successful at that team. He was 27-5-1 as the starting quarterback. Right? So, but he made sure, Deion made sure he retired Shedeur's. Right? And these are numbers that I'm going to be referring back to at a later point, but Shedeur's record was 13-12 at Colorado State. He was 1-8 versus the top 25 teams. He was blown out, I believe it was BYU, in his only bowl game. But he was retired. His jersey was retired. Me. I'm Deion. I'm the coach. I'm the best. I'm the greatest ever at everything, even though I got a losing record. And my son, by extension, is the best at everything. Me, us, versus everybody else. And some of you will listen to this and say, I don't have a problem with that. I would do that for my son too, and blah, blah, blah. Fine. You can do that. But there's going to be some character flaws that you should be expecting to come because of that. When you only give praise to you and yours, and you never respect the people outside of that, or you just don't care, that's a problem. Fairness is important, guys. It's important. And some people say, oh, well, owners aren't always fair. Other people aren't always fair. The NFL is not always fair. College is not always fair. Fine. That's true. But again, what are we and who are we? What are we and who are we? You're supposed to be a leader of men. The other students at the school are looking at you. What are you leading them to if you're Deion and you're doing stuff like that? Right? That's the question I have to ask. What are you leading them to? So again, back to Shedeur. Let's listen to our first clip about, and before we go all the way into Shedeur, let's listen to our first clip. We got a couple clips here about what was said about Deion and Shedeur. And I forget who this podcast is. I have to find them. But I've caught them recently, and I've liked some of the things that they said. But let's listen to what they had to say to start with.
They screwed this up, and they only have themselves to blame here. And I'm not talking about 20 years of Deion being outspoken. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about this pre-draft process. They called their shot early. that Deion was going to be like Archie Manning and they were going to try to get Shedeur where he wanted to go, like Eli.
I totally agree with you, but you think that what about all the other stuff?
Well, what's the other stuff?
The fact that Deion is a successful college football coach who said, I want to coach my son in the NFL. Again, I kept saying, you don't think Kellen Moore heard that quote? Like, you're going to draft a guy whose dad wants to take your job and is super famous? How about the fact that Deion is incredibly opinionated? He went to Colorado and cut his entire team on the spot. He does not hold back. If Shedeur's not playing and the starter is struggling even a little bit, he's way too involved in this. And if you're a team... It's that I totally agree with you, but it's not just that. It's everything, Deion. It's a huge pain in the butt.
So this is, and just to, again, I don't want this to solely be a color thing, but I'm going to say this for a reason, right? These are two white people speaking about Deion Sanders and Shedeur Sanders. And why am I saying that? Because, people have made this a color thing and they think, oh, well, it's because white people don't want you to be confident. A black man to be confident. And okay, these are two white people, that's fine, but we're also going to hear some black people speaking on it. But they said some interesting things, right? So obviously Deion has done a lot of talking, as he does, too much talking. Where you want your son to go, how you want your son to do certain things, and that puts people in a weird spot. And then Kellen Moore, I believe, is the coach of the Browns now. And you said you want to coach your son and you're highly critical of certain things. The moment he's not playing and the starter is doing bad, you're going to want your son in there. You probably want his head coaching job because you want to coach your son. And the Browns aren't that great anyway, so you're going to try to influence it. All of these things are how Deion may move. And so you have to factor that in. But that's why your son is paying the price for all of your arrogance, in my opinion. Partly. Like you sometimes you have to fall back a little bit and let other people be great. And that's going to be the main message of this video. Is that, in my opinion, to be a great father, your son should be known without you. Now, if you're famous, they're always going to be tied to you. But your son should be able to make great decisions and be a great man by himself. He should not need you to be so in the middle of every single thing that he does all the time. Because then he will never actually grow and become the man that you were. He'll almost be handicapped to you. And that's how I feel that this could potentially be with Deion. Shedeur slid in part because of his own actions, but a major part of it is his father's actions and the things that his father has said and the things that his father has done. These two people, who happen to be white, did not lie. They didn't lie. And the thing they mentioned too is the power struggle, right? There's a power struggle in real life that people don't want to talk about. And the power struggle is beyond just color. If I'm an owner and I own things, I call the shots. I will make sure I always call the shots. I put in the work to be this billionaire. And maybe it was passed down. But at the end of the day, I'm the billionaire. So I'm going to call the shots. I get that. I also get, if you're Deion, I'm trying to make my way up with my son. I get that too. But there's still a way that you need to move when you're not the billionaire. And that just is what it is. That's not a race thing per se. That's a class thing. Classism is way more prevalent here than race, in my opinion. I may not draft Deion just because I don't want to hear him in the back of my headphones while I'm trying to coach his son to be the best player that he can be. I don't need your help. You stay in your lane, I'll stay in mine. Nobody wants extra headaches. But then Deion is, again, telling you where his son is going to go and not go, trying to be like Archie Manning. And a lot of people bring this up. Again, we want to bring color into it. So who's the next person to use? Archie Manning. Didn't want Eli playing for this team or that team. I don't remember which team. ended up with the Giants. And there's a difference. Archie Manning is not Deion Sanders. He doesn't have the quote-unquote confidence. He's not loud. You didn't see him everywhere. He's not prime time. All the deals he was making were behind the scenes, which is where all deals should stay. If you want to appeal to a billionaire or owners or coaches, even if they don't like you, they can still respect that you're saying these things behind closed doors as much as possible. Deion moved and put all that out in front for everybody to see, like public opinion was going to change that. This is where the classism comes in, because now to the owners and to some of these coaches, oh, you're trying to jump the system. And you're loud about it? Nah. We're going to put you back in your place. And some people say, oh, that's a race thing. That's a race thing. That's a classism thing. It's a class thing. You can't be bigger than us. We're the ones that are calling the shots. So you sit down, you sit back, and we'll call the shots. And again, some of y'all may hate that. You may think it's race. In my opinion, look at the NBA. Some of the big problems that the NBA has, specifically in the regular season, because the playoffs have been banging for the most part. But it's because they gave too much power to the players. They let too many people get away with murder. Too many people call shots, and nobody was strong enough to step up and say, you know what? Nah. You're going to get your butt out there and you're going to play, or you're not going to get paid. Somebody's got to be the adult in the room. And if it's the white owners, then it's got to be the white owners. It just is what it is. You cannot let people dictate what they are and aren't going to do when they work for you. You just can't have that. Now, you could be nicer to some people. You could work with some guys. And we've seen that. But you've got to call the shots. Men have to be men. That's really what this comes down to. That's not a black or a white thing. Men got to stand on merit. They got to have principles. They got to have guidelines. They got to know when to call the shots and tell everybody else, you don't like it? Too bad. And my message to people that don't like that or still feel like, well, that's a race thing because a lot of white people have all that power, then as black people, what are you doing to gain that power? There's a bunch of famous black athletes and famous black entertainers, famous black people in general. Put your money together and own something. Start your own league. There's a lot of different things that could be done. But you got to want to do that. And you got to go through the tough processes. But to sit here and get mad that somebody with power or a group of people with power who have things a certain way, and that's the way it is because they own it. I don't necessarily always think that's a race thing. It could be at times, but this is not a race thing. The first two picks of the draft were Cam Ward and Travis Hunter. What color are they? They're not even like hybrid Negroes. When I say hybrid Negroes, they don't look like Steph Curry or Klay Thompson or Pat Mahomes or Dak Prescott. They look straight up black. Black. First two picks in the draft. So is this a race thing? Or is it a class thing? And a power thing? Right? So it also turns out that Shedeur, in the process of having this cocky attitude that he inherited from his father, if you listen to all his interviews, like I said, this guy was on the field warming up, telling kids from other schools, look at my chain, I got more than you, and fine, you're Deion Sanders' son, of course. You know, you're going to have a lot there. You know what I mean? And again, there was other black coaches that Deion was coaching against that had better records than Deion, and nobody cared about him. And that's understandable. Deion is famous. He's probably one of the most famous people in America. Football isn't necessarily worldwide, the football as we know it in America, so I don't know how popular he is outside of America. But in this piece, he's popular. So yeah, there maybe people are going to root for him more than the other coaches. But again, when we're going to talk about color, I didn't see black people jumping up and down for some of those other coaches. and their success. Wasn't the guy in the national championship, were they both black? I think they were both black. I don't hear people talking about them 24/7. And I get it. Again, Deion's famous. People want to be a part of history. They want to lock on to a famous person that looks like them. Okay, there's other people that look like you too that could use your support. That are less arrogant, less cocky, and have won more than 13 games and, have lost less than 12. So is this a race thing or class, power, and I just want to support Deion thing above all the other black people that are out there that you could also support and players? It's more important to be upset for Shedeur, who still got drafted, mind you, and is still a millionaire. He's going to be a millionaire from now until the day he dies. His kids will probably be millionaires as well, and his kids' kids. But, we want Shedeur to be the one. We want, and then so even if you're somebody that thinks it's a race thing, you know how crazy it sounds to sit up here and complain about race when the first 2 picks were black? And I know I'm doing a lot of talking about color here, but I'm just trying to break this down in a way so that we can see beyond just color. I'm using color to see why we should be looking beyond just color. Right? But Shedeur played his part in this too. Because of the arrogance, the cockiness, not wanting to do the things that you need to do to be successful. Who do you want to help? Do you want to help cocky, spoiled, rich kids? Or humble, hardworking, get it out the mud people who come from less and appreciate more? What does Shedeur appreciate? Now, he came out, gave the speech at the end, and he mentions God like his dad does sometimes. And, said, I'm thankful for the opportunity. Okay, but a lot of your other words and actions don't say necessarily that you are humble, that you are thankful, that you praise God for every day that you get to touch the field and get a chance to be successful. I don't see that in everything that they say and do. So what does he do? He shows up to these interviews. He's not doing the best that he can do. But let's listen to what the experts had to say about that.
And that's the danger here. Before the draft, a lot of the stuff that makes its way to the media, and I hear people say all the time, well, you're not going to change the mind of any general manager. You're not going to change the mind of any coach. No, but you know who you're going to affect? You're going to affect the owner. And that one dynamic gets so overlooked in this. Yeah. You're going to freak out owners, and they're going to start asking questions, and it's going to scare guys away. So my point is this.
Yeah, I hear you.
Peter King called, and I trust Peter King completely. He's still plugged in. He called right before the show. Hey, listen, this guy blew his whiteboard interviews. And I've heard from multiple teams.
No, that's a fact, man. That's a fact.
He didn't care.
Right.
He didn't take it seriously.
He totally disrespected the process. If there's one thing he has fault in, it's that. And that's the first litmus test of the NFL. You know that. Wait, is he going to work? Is he going to be ready? Is he going to be prepared? Here's something he can affect. That just like it's on him. Right? It's not like did our right tackle block somebody? Did somebody miss a read or not read the coverage right? These are the things you can control. And yes, that's not where he disrespected the process. And that's where a lot of the NFL was very turned off by Shedeur Sanders and the things you're talking about. Go ahead, Mike. Keep talking what you're saying.
Well, the one story that came up over the weekend, too, to tie it to a specific team, Todd McShay had reported on Thursday. And Todd McShay was, he was the Robin,
one of the main guys.
Mel Kiper's Batman for years, to the point where he was almost Batman 2. He's with the Ringer now. He specifically said it happened with the Giants. And we saw the clip last year on the Hard Knocks off-season when we weren't otherwise fascinated by the Saquon Barkley drama. You got Brian Daboll sitting in the room, and the quarterbacks come in on the whiteboard, and he gives it to him a little bit. Let's stir it up a little bit.
Exactly.
Well, Shedeur didn't like that, apparently, when it happened with him and Daboll. And Daboll was asked about it on Friday night after they made their third-round pick. And, he didn't... He didn't deny it. He danced around it.
So, basically, they just told you some of the things that happened with essentially you're turning off the owners, right? And again, I talked to you guys already about power, and there's politics and everything, but you're turning off the owners, and the owners are, I've even heard reports of owners just saying like, no, we're not drafting him because I don't like that. And then we talk about, he's blowing off whiteboard interviews and not taking them seriously. I've heard things that he went and was on his phone. I don't know how true that is in some of the interviews, but he's not taking them seriously. Almost like, I can't believe you're asking me to do this. I've heard that he told people to check the tape. Again, all of these things, if he was a Pro Bowl player, if he was Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, Pat Mahomes, Josh Allen, elite, then you put up with some of that. I get it. Still don't love it because Aaron Rodgers people have been putting Aaron Rodgers through the ringer the past couple of years. His talent is no longer matching his mouth, and he's running into some issues now. When his talent was A1, you had to put up with the mouth. Now his talent is down. He didn't play well last year. All his haters, and I'm going to say haters, I use that word sparingly because I feel like people overuse it, and if you have facts to support what you're saying, that doesn't mean you're a hater, in my opinion. But there are some actual Aaron Rodgers haters, people that just hated him in general and were waiting for something where they could use it. And hopefully, again, if you're using facts to make what you're saying about Aaron Rodgers, I'm not going to say nothing to you. If you're just hating on the man without the facts, then that's not good. All right? But you're giving energy to these people. If you're Shedeur, you're giving energy to these people because you're not taking it serious. And it seems like you're trying to jump the process. You're trying to be bigger than the process. You're above it. This is why Deion and his ways, transferring that to your son, is not good. Your son's not elite yet. He's acting like he's Tom Brady out here. You ain't Tom Brady. Tom Brady went 7, and when he first got in, had to suck up everything like a sponge. Pause, no diddy. Soak up would be a better word. Less sus. But, that's what had to happen. So now if we're going to sit here and act like Shedeur has already arrived, he hasn't. And the NFL reminded him of that. And I believe that they put a target on him and said, yeah, let's remind him and Deion how this works. You want to mess with our system, make fun of it, pick holes at it, or we're going to show you. And that's why, and again, nobody wants to help people that are arrogant. Worshippers of Deion and Shedeur, because you just worship them, or whatever the case may be, or you think it's a color thing, and now that puts a battery in your back. At the end of the day, this is why, to me, you have to stay humble. And you're going to say, oh, well, some other people aren't confident. You're a Kobe Bryant fan. He wasn't always humble. If you followed Kobe and you heard him talk, you would realize that he was. But there's a time for everything. There was times when there wasn't time to be humble. Can you at least figure that out if you're Shedeur and Deion? Kobe Bryant was beloved by people like Jerry West, Bill Russell. Bill Russell came way before him. The Celtics said he'd never wear a Lakers jersey, wore Kobe's jersey because he was humble. Reggie Miller recently went on All the Smoke, was talking about how Kobe was sucking up, again, pause, soaking up information from him about Michael Jordan, about moves that he did, and they even got into a fight a little bit. But if you hear Kobe talk about Reggie, it was always highly respectable. The respect can still be there with the arrogance. It's still possible. But then people are saying like Shedeur is too good for this, and there's no way he should ever, have to not go in the first round. Guys, listen. He threw 4,100 passing yards, had 37 touchdowns, and only 10 picks. That's pretty good. But again, do we play football and any sport for stats or for wins? Because he was 13-12. He was 1-8 versus top 25 teams, blown out against BYU in the only bowl game he ever played in. And he was not in the He was in the Big 12, which is not really that great compared to the Big 10 or the SEC. Right? So Shedeur wasn't bad, and he showed talent. He has nice touch on the football from what I've seen. But he's not the GOAT of whatever this is. And how do we know that? Well, the people that were honest, let's listen to a few people that were honest. First one is going to be a white guy, because I want to give you all balance. And then the second guy is going to be Marcus Spears, Swagoo. He's black. So let's listen to both of them, okay? We'll break down both individually, but let's listen to Dan Orlovsky first.
If I were teams that entertaining drafting Shedeur, I would want to sit down and watch a lot of the plays that led to the sacks and just have conversations around them. Why? Why did they happen? Because for me, one of the big takeaways is there's too many like situational, selfish sacks where they're unnecessary at times when you got points potentially on the board. This is 3rd and 3 from the 7-yard line. One, this ball should be thrown to the back part of the end zone once you see the safety drive. But that doesn't happen. It's 3rd and 3 from the 7. Okay? And now all of a sudden it becomes 4th and goal from the 32. Again, this is 3rd down from the 28. Just throw this ball away. You lose the rep. The defense has won the rep. Throw it away. We've got a field goal shot from the 28. But instead, it's a 10-yard sack. That happens too often. Then the non-dynamic athleticism. This is cover 2 man. Everybody man underneath, and we're just rushing the quarterback. I promise you, teams do this. I have heard coaches say, when we as a defense are playing quarterbacks that do not make us fear running, we're going to play 2-man in passing situations because our pass rush will handle it. And so they don't do that to Josh. They don't do that to Patrick. They don't do it really to Joe, Lamar. So that's the kind of the traits that you're talking about. So again, that's the flaws that you're going to have to figure out when you eventually draft Shedeur.
Look.
So you hear Dan Orlovsky just basically giving a real breakdown of what he sees on the film only. And again, this is not him saying that Shedeur is not good. This is not me saying that Shedeur is not good. In my opinion, Shedeur should have been a 1st-round pick. Truthfully, if we're going just by the football talent and then adding in the number of tickets that he could sell, and is he a star in the making as far as like his mentality and stuff like that? Of course. But this is bigger than that. Like I said, once again, you're challenging the regime and the process, and almost making a mockery sometimes of some of the people that have put this thing together. And they're not going to like that. And your arrogance that basically captivates some people because they want to be you low-key, that doesn't work against people that are billionaires or NFL coaches or, you know, other NFL players or people that are on your status level to have your money and your pull and more. Aren't sitting there fanning for you, and they're not amused by, you know, some of the stuff that Deion and Shedeur have been doing. And Dan is basically just saying, like, listen, he's a good player, but I have a few questions. And so there's nothing wrong with having a few questions. But he's white, right? But now let me play what the black guy said.
Look, y'all, first of all, we all sit up here and we have an affinity for these guys, and we don't want to shed a bad light on them. We react to what we see.
But it's our job. It's our job.
What I'm about to say, Dan, nothing about Shedeur pops off the tape.
Right.
And when we start talking about quarterbacks where you taking them to be franchise changers and you think that they can be guys to take you into the next 10, 15 years, he hasn't proven that he can be that guy yet. Now, then it becomes, all right, our conversation shifts to development, because we've all had that conversation. Where do you think this dude's ceiling is if he's not there right now? Since he's not giving us anything to say, okay, this trait or this characteristic takes him above what we see him lacking. That's the issue with Shedeur.
Can he become Geno Smith?
Exactly. And when you ask your question, when you ask as an organization that question, does Geno Smith really get you excited? No, it doesn't.
I think
it's a good starter, but it's not a guy that you think is going to put you in competition to win big games.
And so that's Marcus Spears, a.k.a. Swagoo. A lot of people listen to his opinion, like his opinion on football. So he also has some concerns with Shedeur and says that, he doesn't really jump off the page at him, which is fine, but he's just keeping it real. He's saying it like it is. This is not, again, a color thing. We're sitting here and people, this is black, this is white. Everything is not always black and white. Sometimes we're just sitting here making obvious observations and keeping it real. So there's a lot going on in this video. We've discussed a lot. It's a long video. This is my longest video by far. But ultimately, what I just want everybody to understand is that, again, I do not dislike Deion Sanders, where I just don't want to see nothing good happen for him, or he gets on my nerves all the time. No. I have questions about Deion Sanders as far as I do believe that he is super flashy and arrogant and cocky, and that's just who he is. That's prime time. Still very entertaining. Like to listen to him talk. He's a fun listen. But what I'm talking about, and again, one other thing I didn't mention, he's a cornerback. That's what he played. Your son is a quarterback who is like you. Quarterback is not supposed to be me, flashy. I'm going to make the cameras roll, baby. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Now, some of that is okay, but look at the top quarterbacks. My favorite quarterback in the league is Jalen Hurts. I'm an Eagles fan, diehard, all day. I started this channel after we won the Super Bowl, so I haven't really talked about it. But you're going to hear about Jalen Hurts on this channel. Trust and believe. But I love Jalen Hurts. I like Lamar Jackson. He's tough, man. He's tough. Pat Mahomes. I like Pat Mahomes, man. Patty is a beast. If you look at those three quarterbacks, from what I can see, all humble. All say the right things when they're answering questions. I've seen Lamar Jackson shopping in downtown spots on TV. Just chilling. He's a man of the people. Jalen Hurts, a man of the people. Mahomes, a man of the people. It's easy to get behind them. But not just that, look how successful they are. Because in my opinion, they're humble. They care about their teammates. They always talk about their teammates and playing as a team and sticking together. And it's not just you hear it once or twice here and then they're back to, oh, it's me, flashy, my Lamborghini, my Maybach. It's consistent with these guys. It's a lifestyle. So you want to go from the three most successful players in the NFL by far in the last 5-6 years. They have that in common, mixed with the hard work. You want to go from that formula that's been extremely successful to Shedeur Sanders and me. Maybach Sanders? If I'm a GM, if I'm a coach, I don't want the baggage, man. And you know Deion's coming with him, bringing the Louis. You make one mistake as a coach, as a GM, whatever the case may be, oh, they're going to tell you about it. They're going to talk about you. And their fan base is going to be real toxic. I guarantee it. So those are things that you got to put up with them. You know, those are the things you're going to have to put up with them. And again, I like Deion as an entertainer. But would he be my friend? No. And I know some of y'all gonna get mad when I say that. Well, you ain't got nothing, you're poor. Fine, I am poor compared to him. But it's not just that. I don't want to be around people that's constantly bragging on themselves and showing how much better they are than me. And it looks like that's what they do. He got rid of everybody that was at Colorado. He brought the people that could do something for him from Jackson State. Travis Hunter, Shiloh, people like that. Shedeur, obviously. His family and the people who could do something for him, he brought with him. But there's a lot of kids that he left. And in Colorado, he told them straight up, I'm getting y'all out of here. Hit the transfer portal. That's who he is. And is that a smart football play as far as getting rid of the ones that aren't as good? Yeah, sure, that's smart. But how you do things also matters, man. And me personally, from a coach, Deion the entertainer is fire. Deion as the coach, I don't know. Deion as the father figure in the back trying to pull all the strings, I don't know. You know? I don't. So, me personally, I'm a Tony Dungy guy. I like Tony Dungy. That's who I like. Because Tony Dungy doesn't have to be humbled. He already is humble. Everybody gets humbled. Nick Sirianni was the coach of the Eagles. I'll be the first to tell you I was on his behind before last year. We started off the season losing a game to Atlanta that was still dumb, that we should have won because he took a dumb chance. I think he should have kicked a field goal and he decided to go for it, and Saquon dropped it. And I was like, oh, here we go again. This guy doing it again. Here he goes again. And he turned out to win the Super Bowl. But even Nick Sirianni went through a humbling period. He had a lot of success. Then it went down. Then he was at the bottom. And he regrouped and got himself together. Because he was a little too confident and cocky at one point for me too. But he's more humble from what I've seen now because he went through something. What is Shedeur? Hopefully this is all Shedeur had to go through to humble himself and get the best out of himself. Because I like Deion and I like Shedeur as entertainers. But you know, the people aspect of it bothers me. And that's just me. I'm just being honest. I'm telling you guys the truth from my perspective. I do not wish bad on them. But I think ultimately they cost themselves a first-round draft pick. If Shedeur was humble, I feel like he would have went one. And if Deion wasn't so, you know, we know who does things right, who doesn't, we're the best, you know what you're getting, you know. And if he encouraged his son to make sure you're prepared for this, make sure you do this, make sure that you know, give credit to your teammates, that you're just there to work hard like everybody else. Have more of that. Then he would have been a top draft pick. He would have been in the first round, in my opinion. But it's the arrogance. It's the arrogance, right? The arrogance. It to me, it messed him up. It messed him up. The arrogance. And then again, people are going to try to compare him to, well, what about Archie Manning? Let's stop, man. It's not the same. First of all, Eli and Peyton were mad good. I think they only lost like 8. I think Eli only lost 9 games in 4 years. Had a crazy record. And I think Peyton only lost like 6 or something crazy like that. So they were elite. Number one. Number two, Peyton nor Eli now come off as extremely arrogant. Their father definitely doesn't in the commercials that I see him do with them. All the stuff they was doing was behind closed doors, which is where it needs to be. And I'll say this again. Black people, we don't got to tell everybody our business all the time. We don't got to let everybody know everything about us. We can keep that behind closed doors. We can work the deals behind closed doors. You see how Jay-Z be moving nowadays? He tried to give y'all, you know, on that 444 album, he tried to give us some tips. Move in silence, like lasagna, right? Is that what they say? All the arrogance, the bravado, you can be as arrogant as you want when nobody's looking, but, you know, look what it did to you. Was it worth it? Maybe it was. I mean, you're still rich either way. But in my opinion, he had to wait around a lot longer than he should have. First or second round, at worst, should have been Shedeur. But all the extra stuff is what did this. But again, there's a power play here where they got to make sure Deion knows it's not your show, it's our show. Making fun of the process, not taking it seriously, is a problem. So we got to make sure Shedeur understands you need to come down in the bottom, and work your way up like everybody else. You're not different. You're not special. And I'm going to be honest. There's a part of me that feels like everybody needs to be humble like that. So in a way, this is good for Shedeur, in my opinion. Sorry, it's a hard lesson, but you're not special. And if you are special, prove it on the field. Prove it at practice. Right? It's a bit of a classism thing here too, because again, the top people are going to hold their power. They're not going to give it up. And neither would I. Look at the NBA. All of the problems that the NBA has been having is because owners got weaker, acquiesced too much to the players' nonsense, and it just became nonsense. So, I know I said final thoughts already, but final thoughts, I hopefully they'll learn from this. I doubt Deion will, but Shedeur still can. He's a young man that can be, that can grow from things. He's not set in his ways. Humbleness will take you a long way, my brother. People want to help humble people because they know they'll appreciate it. Arrogant people, flashy, always talking about what they have and what other people don't have, is a turnoff. And rich, spoiled brats, not saying he's a brat, but he is rich and definitely spoiled. That's not what appeals to the average person. The average person doesn't relate to that. Now, some people will because they just love Deion and they love you now. They're fanboys. Or you're the same color as some people. But ultimately, the average person that's not looking just at color or that you're a famous person, you don't want to surround yourself with super arrogant people. The friends that you have that are the richest, are they the ones that talk the most about what they have and rub it in your face because you don't have it? I don't think you'd like that. You'd become jealous, envious, you may even hate them. So the arrogance is a thing. Doing too much, talking too much is a thing. So hopefully they'll be humbled from this experience. Shedeur will look at this and let it fuel you, Shedeur. Hopefully it'll fuel him to be the greatest quarterback ever, actually. I hope it does. Now you have a chip on your shoulder that you weren't born with because basically you've been rich all your life. Now you got a new chip on your shoulder. Let that feed your hunger. So those are my thoughts on the Shedeur being drafted low, why that happened, how that happened. And I also gave some explanations for what I hope to see in the future. I hope he does great, man. I hope he does. But I understand why all these things happened. And I gave you guys my opinion. Deion and Shedeur, Deion specifically, the entertainer, is a blast. Love it. Enjoy it. But Deion as the coach, as the, as some other things, as somebody I'm trying to relate to when I'm watching his stuff, as somebody that you would like to see be more humble, that Deion in serious matters, I don't know if not a fan. The entertainer Deion, definitely. But this other part, not really a fan of it. All the arrogance, too much bravado, it's too much. And you'll never see, again, I don't really see Deion with a whole bunch of jewelry nowadays, but Shedeur had the biggest chain ever in the draft room. Did you see Eli Manning or Peyton Manning with a huge chain when they got drafted? Like, it's stuff like that. It makes a difference. Y'all don't want to believe me? Fine. But me personally, even I don't really want to see people with these huge behind chains telling me their life is hard because they're not getting drafted. Or people are picking on them in the media. But you got a chain that's worth 3 of my houses. My house times 3. It's not a good look, man. So that's all I have for today. This was a very long video, my longest by far. Some people are going to hate this video. I'm sure of it. But at the end of the day, I'm just saying my piece, just keeping it real, being honest. I tell the truth here. I don't sugarcoat it. I don't lie. I'm telling the truth. This is how I see it. So hopefully you can respect my opinion and I can respect yours. We can agree to disagree. There doesn't need to be any violence or verbal sparring. I'm just trying to stick to the facts of what I see. I'm trying to stick to the facts, and what I see. And I'm giving explanations for how I arrived at these decisions. So I'm not making it up or pulling it out of my butt. This is how I see it. This is how I've seen it. This is how I've observed it. So thank you very much for listening to this episode of the J Boy Sports Podcast. Please like, share, and subscribe. Comment as well. And don't click off immediately because I know that there's some videos that I will be suggesting that I'm pretty sure that you'll like. In fact, I know you'll like them. So thank you very much for your time. I'm very humble. Much love. That somehow you never get over leaving me. And when you feel like coming back.